Thank you. Thank you, Col. Yes, you guys. Sorry, I don't like about OBS. In the scene, I can't sort of turn off a microphone that I can find within a scene and have it turn. So thank you for reminding me. I need to put a note on my computer. Mute, take microphone off. Because when I go live for the pre-show, I mute my microphone. And then I'm so worried about going live, I don't know. Anyway, let me start up. Hi, guys. And what I was saying before you guys noticed that I was off air is also I'm looking a little small in my audio. Lower would be this game. All right, well, I'm looking at this. I'm not going into the yellows at all. Maybe you're. We'll get in and out. My sound is cutting. All right, so let me take off my noise. Move the noise gate entirely, and I'll turn my compressor up a little bit on that. And I'll turn my gain. My gain's only at is actually at negatives. So, all right, cutting in and out. Thank you for the feedback. That's good to know. I think my noise suppressor is probably too high though, so I'll turn that. I'll go to defaults on that. All right, so better. Thanks for the feedback, guys. It's so hard for me to tell because I have to record and then go back. And the other thing too is I've moved my sitch around a little bit, which has extended my mic location to the farthest point on my table, so I'm a bit farther from my mic than I normally am. Alright, this is really boring tech stuff, but let's get it out of the way before we start off with the real content. So in the timestamp below, I'll be like, actual show starts at 9 minutes in. I don't know if you guys can tell, but the webcam should be better. Hello, Canada, from Memento Mori. Ooh, that's a kind of a dark name. I know what that means in the Latin. Right, yeah, I found this way now to use an NDI tech to turn my mobile phone into a portable webcam. So rather than actually using the one webcam from my laptop, which was meant to be really good, and it was meant to, it was the best one I could find on the market. The fact is I just wasn't happy with it. I would watch it back and I was really blurry when I would like do that kind of stuff. I would just become fuzz on the screen. And I'm looking at myself doing that now. It's a little less fuzzy. So yeah, the phone camera is indeed better. The nice thing, the visuals a little bit unsynced. Okay, so that's also another thing I can play around with in the properties. I know that there are ways to do the advanced properties with the sync, and I guess for this time you guys are just going to have to deal with a little bit of lag. I hope it's not too problematic because I'll be doing videos mostly anyway. But the hope here is that I will be able to use this to talk to the mic and then use Skype as a second NDI source to have somebody else on screen, because it's fine though. Okay, the lag's okay. Good to know. Because I can't use my webcam and Skype at the same time, so I needed 2 external video streams if I wanted to have, you know, more than one thing. I can't use my webcam and my Skype cam for the same thing. So yeah, I'm trying this out, and it looks to be going pretty well. So I'm happy. All right, that's all the OBS update out of the way. So another OBS milestone reached. Woohoo! Let's get on with the topic I did want to talk about today. But before, I want to also introduce my German coffee mug. So I'm going to take a little sip because morning coffee. Afternoon coffee, really, at this point. But it's got der Kirchentag. It has the Kirchentag, the Cologne Day. So I'm going to read it out in German, and then I'll do a translation in English. And there are 11 steps to the Cologne Day. Erste. Aufstehen. I have to figure out, maybe I have to translate it as I go along. Aufstehen. That means get up in the morning. Gucken, ob der Dom noch steht. Look to see if the dome is still standing. So, has the cathedral fallen down overnight? Okay, no. That's the second thing you do after you wake up. Wäckchen frühstücken. I'm not sure what Wäckchen is. I know Schien means a diminutive, so it means some sort of like have a little breakfast. Bisschen arbeiten, work a little bit. Bisschen Pause, then have a rest. Bisschen arbeiten, so then work a little bit more. Then you like get up, look to see if the cathedral is falling down, have some breakfast, go to work, have a break, work some more. Halvhan essen. A local Cologne dish is called halvenhan, and it's not chicken, it's like bread and stuff. But have a traditional Cologne lunch. Kirsch trinken, to drink a Cologne drink, a Kirsch here that we have. Noch ein Kirsch trinken. So after you have halvhan essen, Kirsch trinken, and noch ein Kirsch trinken. So have 2 Kirsch. Then für den FC betten, go and root for on the local football team. Betten is not bet, or maybe it is. I don't know. But then go to bed at night, schlafen. So that's a Cologne day. It's very relaxing. It involves some architectural soundness checks, some beers, a little bit of work, a little bit of relaxing, and a bit of football. So that sounds like a very lovely thing to have. Yeah, okay. So from that lovely thing, I think I'm gonna have to turn this a little bit. We're gonna do a little bit of on-the-fly editing because I want to get closer to my mic. All right. I'll feel a little bit better if I'm a little bit closer. Not too close, though. I don't want to do ASMR. Or maybe you want me to. I don't really care. I'm not going to do it. Right, I guess I should get into what I wanted to make this video about. And it's come together as a consequence of a lot of independent things that have happened. There was the kickoff this time is that we had the thing with Carl dropping the N-word. And there's been a lot of reactions. The Patreon thing, that YouTuber law guy that I told you about, he's actually filing a complaint. It looks like a con job to me. I'm sorry, guys, but this YouTuber law guy who is not into antitrust stuff, doesn't know his specialty, basically wants to do this as a project and have people give him a bunch of money. And to me, it just seems like the exact same sort of money-grubbing, opportunistic chance to set up a GoFundMe that Peterson and Rubin are benefiting from as well. So there's a lot of things that have come out of this whole series of events that could be criticized. Feminist ASMR, yes. Smash the patriarchy. Reform toxic masculine norms in the society. That kind of ASMR. So there's so many things that kind of you can pay attention to and part of this controversy, but one that on reflection, I'm getting increasingly annoyed as not being talked about more. And when that happens, when you see something like that, and you're like, no one is doing this, it usually means you've just made yourself a job. And now it's your job to do that. And that's kind of what I realized, hence this hangout. And it has to do with the fact that people, men like Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, and Dave Rubin are simply ignoring or excusing or waving away, I guess is the word I'm looking for, Carl's use of the N-word. There is such lip service paid to acknowledging the offense that he gave in an attempt to sort of cover their ass as they go to their next point about how they want to make money off of it. And I feel more and more keenly as maybe I get older and some confidence and some wisdom in the world, and honestly it's probably exposure to the experiences of Black people that, and up until this part in my life, I wasn't able to directly access because the internet liberates information in that way. And yeah, being on Twitter and seeing all of the instances of racist women, usually racist white women, gonna own that, passively aggressively using 911 to police people, the communities of color, is bullshit. And that when people talk about microaggressions and actual aggressions, you can talk about it in the abstract, but documenting it, and it's been documented as a pattern so many times. Just go on Twitter and you can find tons of Beckys, Colin, Popo on Black people who are just literally going about their lives, mowing lawns, having a barbecue, swimming in a public pool, walking into an apartment building. Now, there are not always white women. There's a lot of racist white guys out there too. But this definitely, the more calling the police, it seems a more passive-aggressive a tactic by white women, whereas white men just seem to want to come up in your face and tell you, insert themselves into private conversations and tell you what they think, like you give a crap. And calling out Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin for whitewashing Carl's use of the N-word is what I wanted this show to be about. And then I saw Gothic Intellect's video on this, and it was the perfect timing. She's actually not talking about the Sargon Peterson, Sam Harris, Dave Rubin way of handling the N-word. She's responding to something that happened on the internet, kind of digging up an archive from 2012, Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld, Ricky Gervais, and Louis C.K. before he was outed as a sex pervert. All sitting around talking, and I'd seen that a couple years ago, and I remember the clip, and it is interesting how your perceptions change in 5-6 years, how quickly that can happen. And she made a video about that. I wanted to give it a signal boost because I think Gothic Intellect has a really beautiful way of expressing her thoughts. And in this particular video, she's her sound is acting up, and so she's having to record like in a literal closet for the sound things. But her points are still really important, and so I wanted to start with that video. And oh, right, let me set it up first. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is good. I think I'll check the audio when we get started. But this wasn't, she's not gotten enough views on this. Ultimately is the problem that I see. And I wanted to signal boost this content. I've already got her permission to talk about it. And there's two things. One, I wanted to give her voice more of a sort of a lift, a signal boost, as it were, and have her give her experiences, because I can't speak to those. And then I want to give just sort of some of my reactions to some of the things she's saying. She is quite quiet. I did test the audio before. Hopefully it's not too loud nor too soft. But let's go ahead here. If there are problems, I can see the chat, so if there are big sound problems, you guys can let me know. Otherwise, let's go.
In racial dynamics within the Black community. So like that's a whole nother different video for a whole nother different day. The one thing I did want to get on here and say is that if you are not a Black person, you should never be using that word. You have no business using that word. I don't really care how you feel, if you think it's unfair or whatnot. Like it's just not your business, because it's a cultural word within the Black community.
So I think that I know she's not going to smash me for fair use. So but on those points, I just want to sort of pause a little bit and add. I'm listening to like her content and being again exposed to more first-person perspectives of lived experiences of African Americans. People in a new generation, younger people, might come up feeling like the problems of slavery, white people here I should say, are problems of the past, that they don't own them. But the fact is that what we need to acknowledge as white people is that we don't know what it's like to grow up in a society where the entire history has been tilted against us. And then there has been kind of a line drawn on this word. This using the N-word itself has become a bit of a symbol, I think, of racism when white people use it in terms of the community. And it's contentious because Black people are using it, and so white people who are younger, I think younger white people, see that and feel like, well, why can't I say that word? Because they have no context and no understanding. And listening to people's experience is how you get that context and how you get that understanding, and having the emotional comportment of where is this person coming from, not can I be a childish person and stomp my feet and use this word even when it causes hurt and pain and suspicion to others, and it makes me look like a scumbag. So anyway, I'm gonna let her talk because I'm talking too much, and she's brilliant.
If you're not black, you're not within the community, you're not a part of the culture. So you don't have access to it. It's the same thing with the F word in the gay community. There are some gay people who don't say it. There are other gay people who will lovingly refer to each other as the F word. And as somebody who's not within that community, I respectfully do not use that word. It's the same thing.
All right, so I know this is a really simple thing, but because the use of the N word has always been framed with predominantly white men challenging everybody else to justify why they can't say that one word. It narrows it to, they frame it in such a way, and I sadly bought into this, okay, like white people are just going to agree not to say something. But the fact is, as she points out, look, we all agree not to say certain words. Okay, some complete jerkwads just will say anything because they can, and then there are social consequences to being that. But it's not as if because someone is black, they get to say whatever they want and there's no consequences. And this idea of we all have words we don't use because we're not part of that community, and they're slurs if you're used outside the community, and we just respect that. And I think her point on that, when someone says to you next time, well, why is it that only white people can't say the N-word? You're like, there's a lot of words that we agree not to say because we're decent human beings. And that's what, what Highly Critical is saying here. She's pointing out that it's not just about framing it in terms of the N-word and everything else. There's a lot of ways that we self-censor out of respect for other human beings, because we know that a word has been used in such a way it caused pain in the past, and we don't want to cause that pain again or even bring it up. And I know it's just a really small, simple thing, but it was like, of course, we all have verbal barriers that we don't cross if we're decent people. So this is not some special extra burden that white men who want an N-word pass, especially, and I'm sure there's racist white women who would make this argument as well. But again, it always seems to be like the guys coming out in front saying, why can't I say the N-word? Like, well, because you can't, because you should be a decent human being. You also shouldn't say the F word and this other slur and these misogynistic slurs. So they're not having anything taken away from them that other people get to enjoy, because all of us are on a nexus of exclusion where there is linguistic sort of phrasing and culture that is not available to us because we're just not part of it. And her notions about behaving respectfully and not using a word out of respect is something that doesn't come into the conversations of guys who feel entitled to say the N-word. But continuing.
With women, there are some women who will call each other bitches. I know I call my girlfriend, like, a bitch, this was just happening, da 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 da. There are some women who will call each other sluts and all of that stuff, but because we're women and we're all of the same gender, we're not attacking each other in the same way that a man would be if he were to be using that word towards another woman. But on Twitter earlier today, after seeing a whole bunch of different responses to it, I made a tweet basically saying that the N-word debate basically boils down to respectability and respect with the black community. If you are not within the black community, then out of respect for us as a community, you should just not say it. If you're within the black community, there are some people who feel like it shouldn't be said at all. In my opinion, most of those people are either respectable Negroes or they're people in other parts of the diaspora. There are black people who are not from America originally, like in their ancestry, or they're black people who are not descendants of American chattel slavery. It's mainly us, like the descendants of slavery here in America. It's mainly our thing to say nigga. It was mainly us who decided to take that ugly word and to change it into a term of endearment. And that's one of the reasons why we say it and it gets said. Now, I have made a couple of different videos on respectability, politics, and I'm completely against it. It's the same thing with trying to slut shame a woman, or to call a woman a whore, or to devalue a woman because she's had a child out of wedlock. It's just a form of control. And with Black people who feel like the word nigga should not be said, I feel like it's just self-censorship. Like, I feel like it's a tactic that's used by non-Black people to try to control us by using the famous fucking phrase like, well, if you guys can say it, why can't I say it? Because you're not Black, and you know you're not Black, and you should just be respectful of that fact. Be respectful of the fact that racism is a white problem. It's the problem of the white community.
Dang it, sorry you guys. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I need to stop muting my mic when I drink coffee. I had such a good rant there. I'm going to cut this off. Right. Okay. So, thank you by the way, Culture Shots. I've got my mic right up next to my thing and you're no sound, no sound. Still doing OBS tests. All right, I'm never gonna mute my mic. You're just gonna have to hear me drink my coffee from now on, because clearly I get too excited to remember more than one thing at a time. All right, I've been going on for like freaking ever. So, this is a long time. Thanks, guys. I'm so sorry. I really apologize. All right, let me do this again. White women need to white people generally need to own the solutions to racism in America, because Black people can't. You can't be the ones oppressed and out of power and solve it from within a power structure. And so when white people step up and are allies, that is the way to solve the problem. You can't solve the problem of racism by just sitting back and watching it happen. And part of that comes from having, stepping up and saying, if somebody drops an N-bomb in front of you, call them out and make them feel uncomfortable about their use in front of you, knowing that it's not socially acceptable to you. And that is the kind of reinforcement that we can do as people in the white community to help transform society. Because if people feel like in a white space they can say those things and they're safe, then it gives them, that kind of permission. If that racism space becomes so narrow and narrow and narrow until it's only in their heads, and they can think it, but they don't know that, they don't feel comfortable, nobody they know wants to hear the racist garbage, that's a better place to be. All right, so again, really sorry. No, I will not I will not put on the mute anymore. I've learned my muting lesson. Maybe I can go ahead and cut the video when it goes out live so that people don't have to sit through 10 minutes of silence. Anyway, if I would have got back, it applies to misogyny, homophobia, and transphobia as well. Exactly. That's wherever this nexus is. And that's one of the other things I said when I was muted, which is that we're all on a community where, well, I guess if you're like a cishet straight white guy, go ahead and own cracker. Go ahead, own that. That's that. Call yourself cracker, call her white guy's cracker. There you go. There's your racial slur. If you really want to call somebody a slur, you can call them a cracker. As a white person, there you go, But yeah, you just can't own other people's insults and slurs because it's a power dynamic. And walking in and dropping N-words as a, it just makes you look like a racist. It doesn't make you look cool and hip. All right. I'm going to play the video and get going and not put on mute so I don't mess up again.
If you really want to say nigga that bad, then why don't you end racism? End racism, and then maybe we can open up the, well, if you can say it, why can't I?
Yeah. Thank you for that. First things first. If you, I just want to restate what she said. If you're so concerned about equality, well then end racism, right? Because that term is loaded because of its racist past. So focus on the problem behind the word, which is the racism. And when we've ended racism and we've seen a real reconstruction of the power structures in the states where people have more representation, they feel empowered, there's more justice, and give it about 50 years. Yeah, well then you can have the conversation. Okay.
But in regards to other Black people who are against saying nigga, I understand where they're coming from because I used to be one of those respectable Negroes. And one of the things that I learned quite quickly is that you can be as respectable as you think that you can be. I can shave off my hair and straighten it, get a perm. I can wear Abercrombie and Fitch and Hollister, and I can enunciate my words properly, and I can emphasize my California accent. That will not change the way that white people, and specifically non-Black people, perceive me. One of the things that I realized quite quickly is that we are all viewed the same. If you're Black, you are treated like you are Black, and Black people are treated like an underclass in this country. Me not saying nigga is not going to change that. Me not saying nigga in my vocabulary will not have a non-Black person view me as a human being and give me the type of respect that I am due.
And then this point that she's making comes back to this idea about where the solution to racism lies. And as she points out, right, she can, and anyone who's Black can, wear all the right suits and speak with a certain kind of accent to that sounds closer, to what the mainstream white vocabulary and enunciation is. None of that will ever be sufficient to protect a Black person from racism any more than if a woman dresses up in not sexy clothing and baggy things and doesn't wear makeup. That's not a magical charm against her being sexually assaulted by a stranger or by anyone else. But, it's like you cannot control the external world and how it reacts to you simply by controlling yourself. Right? And so this comes again back to the issue of it's not up to the Black community to fix the problems of white racists. Right? They can tell us their lived experiences so we can better understand. But, it's the people who have the power who are best placed to critique those in power and work to transform the kind of power structures we have and the people we have and the basis on which we assign that. So, yeah, well put.
I know that because, like, that's literally what I experienced in my life. And that's one of the reasons why, if I want to say nigga, I'm going to say nigga. It's one of the prices that my ancestors paid in this country. It's one of the things that my culture takes part in, and I have full access to that. Now, one of the tweets that I tweeted out today, I said that Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered in a suit and tie. That's just an example of how respectability politics is not going to save lives. You know, if I can bring it back to being a woman, there are women who feel like if they cover their body, then they're never going to get raped. It's this weird, misconception that bad things only happen to people who project that weird type of behavior out, and that's just simply not true.
Do you guys remember last week when we watched the Joyner Lucas video, I'm Not Racist? And one of the things that the white character complained about was, oh, pull your pants up and don't wear hoodies, and if you dressed normally, you probably wouldn't get harassed by the police. That's what she's talking about. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're a black man in a suit driving a car, you can get pulled over by the police just for driving while black. Right? You got a man who walked into a bank to cash his paycheck, and the people behind the counter called 911 because I thought he was trying to pass a false check because he was black. Like nobody. There was no suspicion on the check. There was nothing wrong with the check. It was completely valid. He got 911 call and had to be talked to the cops. Why? Because he tried to cash his check at a bank while black. You can't just mirror white culture and then be protected from the racism of that culture. And I just want to thank Highly Critical. It was Gothic Intellect for all, so it's like I mix up her name sometimes. But she just puts the point so well and so eloquently. I really appreciate it a lot.
It's the same thing with rape. If a rapist is going to target you for that crime, it doesn't matter what you wear, it doesn't matter how you present yourself, someone's going to target you regardless. It's the same thing with racism. Like, there are well-to-do black people who dress up in suits and ties, who speak properly and go to the nth degree to assimilate into whiteness, and they still face racism. At the end of the day, the problem is racism. The problem is not what words that black people will use amongst each other, or what words that black people use in hip-hop and in songs like that.
So again, this is such really good points, that racism is a problem in the white community, and that black people can't self-regulate themselves into not being the victims of racism by racist-ass white people. That's not the solution. The solution isn't to expect the oppressed to mirror the oppressors in order to try to blend in more. The solution is for the white community to address its racist tendencies, its racist members, and to have a discussion about why being racist is completely wrong. It's anti-American, it's anti-Christian. If you want to go in a religious sense of the word, it basically violates the fundamental principles upon which our country should be founded. Right? Not in practice, because in practice our country did shit on actually enacting these principles, but in our dreams, our aspirations, where we're moving to, progressing to, right? We should be able to root out the racism in the white community. And I'm not saying that they're like white. There's no problems with bigotry in any other community, or the white people are the only ones that have bigoted attitudes, and just not being white makes you magically not bigoted, right? Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as a white person in a white majority country, right? I gotta own this shit if I want a better country. I can't just say, oh, well, it's not me. It's not my problem. It is my problem. It's my garbage to take out. It's what my ancestors left me. This is the garbage they left behind for us to clean up as white people to fix their racist ass problems. That's our burden. And we have to embrace it and start owning it and feeling comfortable owning it, because that is how you get real change in your heart and with other people and in a society.
That's ridiculous. It's an excuse. It's a deflection from the real issue at hand. And another reason why um, saying nigga is not a big deal for black people is that within the white community specifically, there's different white people, right? Like you have well-to-do white people, or like yuppies, I guess as some call them. You have white trash or rednecks or country people who, live in trailer parks and drink Coors Light and Pabst Blue Ribbon and just do a whole bunch of weird country shit. The fact of the matter is that they're all still white. They all get to experience whiteness, and they may experience like internal disrespect within their community, or what type of white people will interact with white trash or whatever, but they're still white and they still get respected as white people. Even if you believe that there's a difference between regular well-to-do black people and niggas, at the end of the day, we all deserve that type of respect as human beings. And like being a nigga, or liking nigga things, or participating in nigga activities, that doesn't make you less worthy of respect as a human being. Plus, one thing that a lot of people forget is that there are well-to-do regular ass black people who like to partake in trap music and smoke weed and, go to functions and turn up and, just have fun. Like a lot of the times, just being a nigga is just enjoying yourself and having fun. And that's not cool or acceptable that doing things that are associated with being a nigga gets demonized in white society.
Right, but whereas smoking weed makes you kind of cool and hip and alternative in the white community, you get Joe Rogan and Elon Musk up there faking he's inhaling on his show. Oh, look at him. Oh, look at they're so edgy and they're so cool. But when black people smoke marijuana, oh, they're lazy, drug, blah blah blah. Right. Oh, and can I just point out someone who said, mentioned Sargon Carl Benjamin claiming that at the MythCon conference, I'm not making this up, went on to claim that all of the problems in the black community, how's my hair today? Looking better. All the problems in the black community could be solved if black people just got married to somebody. Like black women and black men just need to find somebody to marry and settle down, and that would solve all the problems of systematic racism. Again, putting the problems of oppression putting that burden on the people who are oppressed, and not looking at all reflectively at the systems of power. And that's why we all know Carl's an idiot, because it's such a stupid answer to such a complex problem that only he, in his infinite, apparently, dumbness, would think sounds like a good idea.
So my personal main issue with that clip, like I said, is not so much.
So again, just for context, she's talking about the 2012 interview or the talk between the four comedians, three white and Chris Rock.
It's not so much that the word wasn't necessarily said by a white man. My main issue is that Chris Rock told Louis C.K., you're the blackest white man, and Louis C.K., without missing a beat, responds by saying, oh, so I'm a nigger. And that just made me feel like Louis C.K. literally equates all black people with niggers. It's a very disgusting, derogatory slur. Most black people who even say nigga, they do not say the hard ER. And at this point, I feel like that's really, really obvious.
No, and the way I read this is honestly the way I kind of read all comedians, like a lot of comedians who are up these days. Whereas, Louis C.K. thinks he knows about black culture, or understands it, not through a personal lens, but probably through a TV lens. And yeah, he just sort of jumped in thinking, ooh, what's the edgiest way I can reply to Chris Rock here? I'll just refer to myself as an N-word with a hard R. And I thought, like, let me flip this, because I can't get the full kind of impact that maybe a black person could have because I'm not black. When Highly Critical mentioned this instance about how her reaction to Louis C.K.'s use of the word in a hard R. I didn't have that. I mean, I was shocked that he used it. I was like, oh, that's an interesting direction to go. You're going in there. But I didn't have the experience of it because I don't have the weight of that word in my history, my personal history. It hasn't affected my life in that way. So I kind of tried to turn it into something more equivalent. What if it had been, Chris Rock had been a woman comedian instead, and she had turned to Louis C.K. and said, "You're the most womanly man comedian I know," and he turned to her and said, "Oh, so you're saying I'm a cunt?" And now that, like, I really sort of like saw the parallels in terms of her perspective on, you think all black people are N-words, right? And that to me, it was different because I can't relate to that experience. But when I modified it to applying to women, I exactly saw how he had reduced. He wasn't being funny. He could have chosen he could have chosen any other word, and it probably would have been funnier. Because he is a comedian. But in this case, he went for the most obviously offensive word, and one whose context he clearly doesn't get a subtle grasp on, despite Chris Rock's praise of him. And so then I just wanted to make that point, that when she said that, and I tried to rephrase it in my mind in a way that was more relatable to me, I saw his comments in a new light. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put her video on, because I think she does a great job of explaining things and giving her perspective. Sometimes calmly, sometimes with a bit of fire behind it. But it only had 54 views and it needed way more. So here we are.
And I was also uncomfortable with Ricky Gervais being so gleeful. If you watch the clip, he's like jumping out of his fucking chair at the opportunity to say the word nigger. And even Louis C.K. made a joke to Ricky Gervais talking about, well, we say it in private. Like, as a white person, you shouldn't be saying it, period. Like, in my private conversations, in my social circles, I don't say the F word as a slur towards gay people. I don't say it at all. I don't say it privately. I don't say it publicly. And if I really do feel like saying a word like that is okay, then I wouldn't have a problem saying it publicly. If you have a problem with saying a certain word publicly, but you like to use it in private, that says a lot about you. It says a lot about how you put on a facade of being respectful, of being a compassionate person, when in reality you don't care about the people that you're hurting.
Which is such a good point. So someone asked, would Louis C.K. be happy if someone greeted him with, "Hey, wanker"? Can I tell you something that did happen to Louis C.K. that I saw reported? He, of course, he does, apparently he'll just show up on stage and try to sneak onto these some open mic night and get some attention. And he had done that at a place. He was doing his jokes, and a woman was in the audience near the front in the corner. She couldn't get up and leave, so she wasn't able to just walk out of the performance. She stayed for a while. And the audience was just kind of letting it slide. Like, they were just sort of enjoying him like he was doing a set and there wasn't anything wrong with him. And she was getting more and more frustrated as the set went on about the fact that people weren't holding him accountable. So she decided to heckle him. So as she described it in the news article, you can go find, the woman who heckled Louis C.K. There was a pause in his set where he sort of between bits, and he'd cross the stage and come closer to where she was seated with her friend. He was getting a glass of water and looking at his notes. And she just took the moment and yelled out, "Get your dick out!" And she said he looked up and his eyes widened as in shock. And he said, "What did you say?" She's like, "Get your fucking dick out!" And so maybe Louis does know what it's like to be publicly humiliated by going after something that's deeply personal. Now, of course, the difference is people who get racial slurs hurled at them are not guilty of the things that are being hurled at them. In the case that we know, Louis C.K. did get his dick out to women, using his power in order to put them in situations where they felt like they couldn't say no. So saying that to his face, I hope everybody. I mean, I was a huge Louis C.K. fan. I was a really big fan. But if he were to be tried and convicted of the things he admitted to doing, he'd probably have a 3 to 5 year stint in prison. I think that's how long he needs to go away. And he needs to show true remorse and truly reform. And I haven't seen that from him, which is really disappointing. But yeah, get your fucking dick out. That's hilarious. Anyway, getting back to it. The other thing I wanted to say was about using it in public and using it in private. So, yeah, I totally agree. You know, if you're two-faced, where you're the sort of person who's going to come along. Actually, I might be able to swap here. Yeah, you're the kind of person who's going to come along and be one person in public in one kind of language. And we all know, like, I don't swear around my mom like I do around you guys here. You know, in certain situations, I'll speak more loosely with different language. In a professional setting, I'll use other more, you know, academic or technical language in order to be clear if I know my audience. But it's, you know, if you're a racist in private and try to hide it in public, you're still a racist. And that's her point. Now, on a completely different level, in terms of use in private, I don't use the term in private. I will note though, since I've been getting more into hip hop and watching more shows reviewing hip hop, I am coming into contact with the word a lot more. Because I am interacting more with content produced by the Black community, African American community. And so that, for me, and this is sort of like, this is not a burden. I'm not complaining. I'm just noticing it and giving it feedback that its use in the Black community and songs puts it into my life when I consume it. So that's just like, as a consumer, that's something that I need to deal with. But for me, like when I want to get my Beyonce on, when I'm feeling a little like I need to hear Sorry or something grooving, you know, I'm now, I look to No Life Shack, which is a great rap video music review channel. And he has been trying also, like, he doesn't want to get demonetized, so he's been trying to find a phrase that he can use, sort of a replacement phrase, when he wants to say, you know, with a soft A version. And he says, my guy. You know, like my guy, and that's, you know, I've decided, because for me it's like, what do I do when it's in a song? That's the only time I come across the opportunity to use it. And so this is something I wrestle with, not when I'm doing karaoke, just in my home. You know, when like I'm listening to sorry, I ain't sorry, my guy, no, my guy, you're my guy. So then that's my solution, right? Fingers up, put them hands high. Boy, bye. Yeah, I can still enjoy the music and not have to like have a weird part where I just don't say anything, or like, so like this is how I'm trying to, you know, engage with it just on a personal level. And that's what I've decided now. I will not use that phrase to cover up what Carl said. And in those kinds of cases, that's the N-word. You know, I'm not going to cover it up in that way. But when I'm talking about music or songs or whatever, if I'm going to quote someone and I say my guy, unless that's the actual lyric, that's me, like, trying to represent, still maintaining the rhythm, but not using the word. And these are very small concessions. Seriously? Like, I'm not going to die over saying a racial insult. I just don't understand the people, and we haven't even gotten to yet, who feel so committed to defending that. All right, let's go.
Or the communities that you disrespect. So, just to end this video, yeah, respectability doesn't work for anybody of any group. This whole renewed debate about the N-word is really just about respect and respectability in regards to being Black here in America. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have very happy holidays.
Alright, so she's wrapping up, but yeah, you guys should please go and give her a thumbs up. You can see I already gave her a like on this video, and give her some more views and some love. Please sub. I really like her takes. I just say, you know, as someone who grew up in very white rural areas of the Midwest, very little direct contact with people who have lived experiences that didn't involve cows growing up. The internet has been so invaluable for me to connect with people and hear concepts I've seen bandied about in the media, but spoken about in a direct context of somebody's lived experiences, and that makes such a big difference. I know that there's the stereotype of the phrase, oh, you know, my black friend, or my one black friend. It is the case for, you know, what was it? The joke was like, black people have white friends and Asian people have white friends, and like white people have like one black friend. We're not, because of the distribution of the population and where we're located. But having those lived experiences definitely has transformed my understanding and my ignorance. And a lot of white privilege, honestly, comes from a complete ignorance of seeing how other people live and seeing their experiences. Because we think that, oh, their experience must be just the same as mine, except, you know, they're black. And that's what she's talking about, the respectability. You can never dress yourself out of racism. You can never have a car nice enough to make sure you're never going to experience racism. There's a woman, no matter what her age is, you know, you see stories of 80, 90-year-old women getting raped and beaten, right? So there's all this sort of almost superstitious burden placed on the people who are targeted. If you do the X, Y, and Z, then bad things won't happen to you. Logically, then, if bad things happen to you, then it's your fault because you must have done X, Y, or Z. But that's not how the system works, and that I think she put it better than me. Now, I've noticed, because one, I messed up and I was like muted for about 10 minutes there. We're gonna go on an hour now, and I've only gotten through the first video. The next ones are going to be faster because they're going to be videos that we've seen in the past. So there's really no point in going over them all long. But I want to move now in the next hour, I guess. We're going to be going into hour 2, when we look at the reaction of the use of the N-word by 3 white guys, by Sam Harris, Peterson, and Dave Rubin, in direct comparison to this eloquent, thoughtful presentation of the real challenges of the N-word in terms of why it is used by the black community, what it means, and its historical context for their experiences and their current uses, and also the white community, and compare this thoughtful engagement with what Peterson, Rubin, and Harris do. You know, it's okay, you don't have to watch them. I'm just going to put little clips and then talk over them and woman-splain why they're wrong. Alright, so let's take a break. My coffee in my Kirchtag is all gone. It's been going for about an hour. I think an hour is a good time to just have a 2 or 3 minute break. And it will only be 2 or 3 minutes because, like I said, I muted myself for about 10 minutes there. So, hello, is it 96 FPS from Mars? You are joining just as we are about to have a little break. We're not finishing up, but I'm going to go take my coffee into the kitchen, stretch my legs. As you know, they're all folded up. And we're going to come back in about 2 or 3 minutes. So, and then we're going to talk about Jordan B. Peterson and his approach, and Harris and Dave Rubin to the N-word in comparison. So I will see you guys back here. It's 25 after the hour now by my time. I'm looking to be back by 28. So just a 3-minute break. Go make a cup of tea, go have some coffee, go stretch your legs, go use the bathroom, go check your email, and I'll be right back. Hey, thank you. Dang it. Right. So, sound, yes, I'm getting better. Yes. By the way, what I was saying when you couldn't hear me. And I actually, right. Like I said, I needed a note on my computer. Are you muted all the time? Max Lundquist had asked, what do you guys think about Patreon deplatforming Sargon? And what I was saying when I was muted was that Sargon did not use Patreon as a platform. He did not post his content there. He did not advertise his content there. He did not direct people to watch his videos on Patreon's platform itself. He used them underneath his own videos, his own content on YouTube, advertising their brand name and his connection to them on his websites. Therefore, he was not deplatformed. You know, when you get turned down from an account at a bank, you're not being deplatformed. So, just note, not deplatforming when you get denied service from a transaction from like a company. It's just not, so please be technically right on that. Alright, so we heard very eloquently now from a woman who has lived experience, who understands firsthand the oppressive nature of racism in America, and that hashtag not all white people, but you know, also hashtag you don't know which white people either. And this is another parallel I can at least come in from a woman's experience, that I don't hate all men, but on the other hand, every single man that I don't know is a potential rapist or attacker. And so there's, you know, I can relate to the idea that for a black person meeting a white person, you want to think the best, but on the other hand, you had such bad experiences with racists, you know, you can't just sort of go around opening your heart up and getting crapped on all the time. So I understand that suspicion, because it's also something, you know, I have a little bit of direct experience within a different area, a relatable area. And I know it was like the contradiction of women should, you know, be more careful when they go out at night, and they should watch what they wear, and they shouldn't go in dangerous areas if they don't want to get attacked. And then I kind of replied the women's perspective, yes, whenever I go out at night, I look for dangerous areas and avoid them. I check my clothing, and I treat all men as rapists. And then a man going, you're considering me a rapist? How dare you? How dare you? You don't know me. He's like, yeah, I don't know you. That's the point. And when you're walking down the street as a man and a woman feels nervous and you're like, why does she think I'm a rapist? Because she doesn't know you. So if you understand that and give her some space, or cross the street, or, you know, don't act suspicious, hang back, or just like pass her on the, whatever. It's not about you personally. It's about the general menace. And racism is a general menace in America. Right. So the N-word in this case is a verbal representation of that kind of oppression. When it is not used by members of the black community, it is someone from an outside group using what I think, like with women, there is the C word is the worst word, right? There's a lot of ways, there's a lot of slurs that you can throw at people's way, but for women, for some women, the C word is the worst, right? And it's the same thing, like there's a lot of different insults you can throw at black people, but the N word is the one that we, as a sort of society, have agreed on, is that's the really, especially with a hard R, right? And when Sargon decided to use that word, I want to look at how highly critical reacted with notions of like respectability and why they don't work, and what the word means and how it's used, and why it's inappropriate for white people to use a racist slur like that, as if they, you know, as if they weren't a member of that racist group, and all of the history that goes with it. And yet, in contrast, what do you have when it comes to Peterson and Dave Rubin here? You know, I'm going to remind us what they had to say, and when it comes to actually describing the fact that Carl used the N-word repeatedly. Right, so we're going to remind ourselves what they said here.
Why don't you describe what we talked about today?
Yeah, well, first, I think we should just make it very clear for everybody how significant what happened to Carl Benjamin Sargon of Akkad is. It doesn't matter what you think of him or whether you agree with him or any of that stuff. The banning of him for doing something that was not on the Patreon platform, that wasn't even done on his channel, because of a word he said where he was using the word against the alt-right or the neo-Nazis or whatever you want to call them.
There you go. There's your moral authority. He wouldn't even say what word it was. And instead of putting the focus on what Carl said and the idea that with free speech there comes consequences and how Patreon deals with racial slurs being used by people they professionally associate with, that is not the issue they care about. The issue they care about is saying it doesn't matter that he used the N-word. That's not the issue here. The issue isn't the fact that he used a racial slur. The issue is that he was held accountable for using a racist slur. That is a typical, like I see exactly the kind of typical white racist excusing type of language that comes out of our community as white people. This, Dave Rubin not even having the courage to say what the word was that Carl used as an attempt to cover it up really shows that he doesn't care about racism. He doesn't care about racism. He's more interested, he's more invested in protecting a racist, hurling asshole from having any social or financial accountability for his racist slurs. That is his primary motivation. And I don't feel like enough people are talking about this. I don't feel like enough people are saying these guys are profiting from a racist. These guys are using a racist slur as the basis of their business model. These guys are going to the wall to say we have to protect racists from any social or financial consequences. And you're fucking racist, Dave Rubin. You're fucking racist. You are part of the problem if you think that holding racists accountable, people who say like racist slurs, who deliberately hurl racist slurs, it doesn't matter the target. You're still using a racist slur. And this is the other thing that made me mad. This makes me so mad, right? When I thought back to what Sam Harris said, when I thought back to Dave Rubin, what he said, when I thought to what Jordan Peterson said, these white guys are giving another white man a pass to say the N-word. They are saying, in these circumstances, we've decided as white people it's not really racist to use a racist slur. Get the fuck out. It is? No, you don't have that power as white men to decide when it's not racist to use that word. It's not your job. It's not your power. You don't get to decide for black people when that term and the way that it's being used, whether or not they can find that a racist attack. Especially when he dropped, yes, you can say he used the term white N-words, but he also just used the N-word itself, and he used a homophobic slur. And none of that, they're not asking him to be held accountable for any of that shit. It's like, no. As long as we as white people say, if you say the N-word to us in order to insult us by comparing us to black people, that's not racist. Really? Is that the line of argumentation you want to go with here? That when you use a racist slur that's meant to degrade an entire group of people based on their skin color, and white people say it to each other to make a point about how, what was Carl's point? How inferior you are as a white person? That's not racist? Is that what you're saying? No, that term is racist all the time. Doesn't matter if you're hurling it at the alt-right. It's still intended to be a racist slur, and they won't hold them accountable. They want to give each other white dude N-word passes. And you can't give that card out. That's not your card to give out. But what it clearly is they want to try to cash in on it. So I'll finish this off because I don't know what Jordan Peterson says other than Carl's brave. Brave for using, well, he doesn't say brave for using the N-word, but he considers a guy who sends "I wouldn't even rape you" tweets to harass members of the parliament brave. Jordan, brutal male domination. Peterson
is a massive move of that line of what's acceptable.
Yeah, it's not acceptable to use racist slurs. And Dave Rubin is super offended by this. Right? These guys are the problem. This is why we need the white community, people in the white community, to stand up and say, Dave Rubin, what you're doing is defending racist slurs. And there's one group of people that are really invested in defending the use of racist slurs. racists. You can say it's a free speech issue, but what you're at the end of the day saying, under that guise of free speech, is that white people who use racist phrases or words should never be held accountable for what they say. Why? Because they're white. I mean, there's really no other reason behind that other than saying, well, white people should be able to say what they want. Because, and they're gonna, so I'll just leave it at that. Because they don't care about the speech of feminists. Certainly Jordan Peterson, who's tried to actually, silence people and create a database of postmodernist Marxist universities to target and silence them. They don't care about free speech per se. What they really care about is protecting racists.
Now, there's all sorts of debates we can have, and we've had them, of what lines should be, if there should be lines at all.
He's still not saying the word. He's still not saying the racist slur or explaining how difficult, how disgusting and unacceptable it is.
But the fact that this guy got booted with no chance of recourse,
which we know now is a lie, and that Carl actually did have an opportunity to work with Trust and Safety Team at Patreon, and his response was, I didn't say it in your platform, so you shouldn't hold me accountable for my words. And because I said it to people I claim are alt-right, but I have no direct knowledge of and I can't prove, then if I'm saying it to Nazis, then it's not racist, which is stupid. And these guys are buying it and selling it.
with no warning, just like that.
Lies.
It's just an extension of everything else that we've all been talking about.
Also, given that it's also the case that he didn't break Patreon's rules of engagement.
So what? Yes, it's not. Jordan Peterson doesn't care if Carl uses the N-word. He doesn't care if he uses a racist slur. What they want to argue here are little nitpicky things about the law, not the content of his statements, not the viciousness, not the fact that he deliberately chose to use a racist slur and refuses to apologize. This is another thing that they're not telling you, right? A lot of times when Patreon, according to the New York Times article, when Patreon does this stuff, they include an apology for what you said as part of that process of staying within their terms of service. And Carl will not apologize for using racist language. And Jordan Peterson is fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. Oh, one of my lights went out. Oh no, just the power source went. Okay, power source is back. I'm lit again. Actually, might be lit more brightly than before, I think. All right, let's, I don't want to stay too long on these numpties, but just to make my point.
The ones that they stated, and that Conte had talked to you about the fact that that wasn't going to happen, and that Patreon hasn't responded well to this.
All right, so basically here, the summary I want you to get out of this little clip here is that Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin are happy to protect racists, are happy to profit from racists, and have no interest in holding racists accountable for the racist phrases that they use and the impact that they have on society and the people who hear them. And again, there's a lot of things you could talk about around this issue, but their dismissal of using a racist term and trying to move the goalposts away from talking about accountability and free speech and into why racists should be able to say horrible racist things is one I wanted to bring more attention to. And then finally, if you watched the Happy Hour with Kevin recently, we talked about this, but I want to just go over again. Sam Harris, he's another one who has a very blasé approach to the use of a racist slur, and I think his description of it speaks for itself. So let's go ahead and I guess we can take off this now, boop, and this, boop, and I get a little boop noise for you each time I do one of those, and we'll play. Boop.
There was no recourse, and I'm not very familiar with Benjamin, and nothing I say here should be construed as a defense of anything he may have said or done online.
But he's about to defend him. This is it. I mean, this is another thing. This is so disgusting, right? What they want to do is say, hey, he might have a racist past, and he might have sent threats to, a rape-themed tweet to a member of parliament, and he might have said that sexual consent should depend on the child, not on an age of consent we agree to as a society, and he might have said things like women, buy rape fantasy books, and say all kinds of dumbass things. But I'm going to explain to you why whatever he says, it doesn't matter. whatever racist thing Carl's has said, we should just, we really shouldn't care about him freely using the N-word, and there shouldn't be any consequences for it. He should be able to say whatever he wants with no grown-up consequences whatsoever. And yet, Carl wanted to ban university courses. Right? So the hypocrisy here and the willingness to profit from a racist is depressing.
About which I'm unaware, but when I saw so many of you complaining about this, I reached out to Patreon CEO Jack Conte, and I asked him what went into this decision, and he told me that they have a trust and safety team that evaluates these things exhaustively. And so I said, well, can you provide links to the examples of the speech that sealed Benjamin's fate with the team? And he did that. He sent me the transcript of what he said and links to the audio on YouTube. And the transcript was fairly eye-opening. He was using the N-word with apparent abandon.
There you go. Eye-opening. Dropping a racist slur into a conversation apropos of nothing is, in Sam's word, eye-opening. Wow. It must be very nice to not be the target of that racial hatred. Because apparently, you don't give a shit, Sam. You don't give a shit. You're completely unfazed. And in fact, you're more concerned about him being held accountable for his use of a racial slur than you are about the impact of that word on people listening to it, or his audience, or the role model kind of example he sets to his own content consumers when he uses that kind of language. And as Sam didn't know, but Carl Benjamin had agreed willingly to self-censor, to UKIP, and to not use the N-word anymore in public while he's a member of the UK Independence Party. So he's perfectly capable of self-censorship, and he is doing it for UKIP. So why are Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and Dave Rubin so outraged that Patreon is asking for the exact same self-restraint? When you're going to professionally associate with someone like UKIP, they say, hey, we'll associate with you, but we don't want you to make us look bad. So stop saying this most racist term in public. And Carl said yes. And yet when Patreon says, hey, stop saying this really racist word in public and apologize for it, take the content down or make a video about why you were wrong to say it, absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, it's not like I had tons of respect for Sam Harris before, but I have so much less now that I see how transparently he is putting his own profitability over his own moral core. It's more important to him to make money directly without the 5% cut that Patreon is taking, and he's using defending a racist slur as his excuse to exit the company. In the rest of the video, he goes on to say stuff about how there's supposedly this exhaustive team, and the millennials who are looking at this case don't know up from down. But the fact is that when Sam doesn't know what happened inside the team, he has no special knowledge here. He doesn't express even the basic knowledge that was put in the New York Times article. The only information he claims to have is, one, he knows of Benjamin, and he doesn't want to, defend anything he said in the past, but he's going to defend his use of the N-word here. He also said, even though he doesn't know anything about him, he can tell just from watching for 45 seconds that Carl's intention was to rile up the alt-right. Wow. Considering that you couldn't get that from a clean reading or clean hearing, he must have heard what Carl said and then went into the evidence with that frame, looking for a reason to excuse the use of the N-word. And I'll just let him finish here.
And using other slurs. But then I clicked through to the offending audio, and honestly, it took me about 45 seconds to determine that the context really mattered here.
Because apparently, according to Sam, when you decide to use a racist term, and he's speaking from a position of expertise, I guess, and when you're using the N-word against somebody, that, if you hurl a racist slur at somebody, it just stops being racist depending on who's the target. No, that's not how it works. A racist joke is still racist. Hurling a racist slur at somebody who's racist is still using racism. he was still saying, Carl was saying, you can't even act like white people. This is not what white people are supposed to act like. Does Sam engage with any of that? With that racial degradation? With those disgusting racist stereotypes? Does he engage at all with the damage that it does to one's own argument to use those kinds of words? No. He is so invested in defending the N-word. He's so invested in saying there should be no consequences for Carl Benjamin for saying the N-word. And he made like an entire special video defending him based only on the fact that he used the N-word. Why? Because he doesn't care. And again, it's a monetization thing. It's a profitability thing. These guys all think they can give out they can give white people passes to say the N-word. Guys, you can't. That's not your I'm taking that power back. Right? I'm a white one here, lecturing you. Right? This is not within our bailiwick. You don't get to decide when a racist slur is not racist. You know why? Because you're not a target of that slur. So you need to sit down, shut up, and listen to the people who know. There's a reason why Patreon holds a racist slur content creator accountable. It's because they don't want that racist crap associated with their brand. Because anybody, not just black creators, anybody who sees that, and they're like, I don't want to associate with a company that defends a racist. You don't have to be black to be offended by this. And can I also just add, as long as I'm thinking about it and having a bit of a rant, I've noticed this new argument now coming out of especially white guy comedians who are predominantly those on stage. Netflix has a really good series of a lot of different comics. They do comedy specials. I think they're probably obviously pretty cheap compared to creating other original programming. And as a consequence, they have a real diverse range of comedians who speak English that I can listen to. And so I've been able to hear Indian Americans and a lot more African Americans and gay Americans of all different backgrounds, and hearing comedy done by women, by men, by gay people, by disabled people. It just makes you realize how universal jokes are. And two, it's like listening to Highly Critical and talking about her experiences. There are jokes that I would never have thought about or even realized could be funny because I don't have those experiences. But my point on this was, I've noticed watching a couple white guys lately that there's a new tack, there's a new line of argument about when you're offended at somebody else's comedy. And so my position on this is like, you get a Bill Maher or someone else like that. I guess I can, here, let's go to, we don't have to put Sam on anymore. Let's have a fire. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. So before it used to be, you shouldn't get offended. When a comedian like Bill Maher or someone else would say something, comedians would say, it's my right to say something offensive. However, as an audience, you don't have the right to be offended. And if you react in an offended way because I said something offensive, I'm going to get mad at you for being offended that I made an offensive joke you found offensive. It's never their responsibility, right? And that conversation has kind of gone back and forth a little bit. I've noticed now that it's changed slightly. That especially white guys who are comics want to, it's sort of like a version of tone policing. So what was it? One of the guys said, if you become offended on behalf of another group, if I tell a joke and I say something kind of questionable or offensive about a group, and you're not a member of that group and you're offended, then screw you. You have no right to be offended on behalf of other people. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting way to sort of police things, right? To try to delegitimize a social norm by saying, if you're not a victim of this racism or discrimination or sexism, you can't object? Not how this works. It's not like, when Ricky Gervais says things that are offensive about trans people, I think of my friends who are trans and my friends being degraded like that, or feeling degraded, or feeling less human, or feeling targeted. And my empathy to protect them from that kind of completely needless mental suffering doesn't mean that I somehow am not legitimately upset at my friends or my perception of my friends' pain because I'm not a member of that group. You know, this is, if that was the way, if this comedian's logic, if this is, you know, this new guy's tactic worked, white people would never been able to, you know, help and be allies in the civil rights movement. Well, you're not the ones who's victimized by segregation, are you? So why are you upset about what happens to black people? You're not black. You can't be offended on behalf of another group. You know, it's not your civil rights that are being taken away. It's not your human dignity that's being taken away. So why are you upset? And I just think that that's complete bullshit. It is possible to be offended by something that's offensive, even if you're not a member of the group. And comedians, you know, rather than just, like, not all of them. Again, I'm thinking about two guys in particular. There was someone else I watched. I don't know. I tried the Tosh guy, finally. Like, you know, he wasn't as edgy as I guess I thought he would. My impression was. I watched him for 20 minutes before I realized, hey, is that Tosh 2.0 guy? But in some of it, he's just, instead of saying, look, if you get offended, you know, that's your thing. You just be offended, deal with it. And I prefer that to say, if I say something offensive and you're offended, and you can tell me you're offended, then that's fine, because that's an open dialogue. But again, what I want to call comedians out for is wanting the stage to be like a little bit of a safe space. And okay, am I being a hypocrite when it comes to battle rap? In battle rap, you know, when the insults are going back and forth, the people who are being insulted are in the ring and can defend themselves. You can come back in the next round with an awesome diss or turn it around or do something else. You're on stage and you can defend yourself. When a comedian is up there and making fun of people, there is no right to response. There is no rebuttal. And so I do think it's perfectly understandable and to be accepted that if a comic says something offensive on stage and the audience reacts in an offended way, and the comic gets mad, the comic is the one who's in error, because the reaction is genuine. And it's, I think, your job as someone on stage to deal with that and either go, hey, okay, you're offended. I'm an offensive comedian. You paid the money for this, you know, or to try to understand where the offense is coming from, you know. So, and there are comedians who play on the line of, you know, offense. They might say something about doing something, imagining something horrible, and then they describe it in great detail, and the audience starts to go, oh, and they go, it's only imaginary. Like, it doesn't actually exist, you guys. And playing on that edge, I understand. But don't shame your audience for having a legitimate reaction. And don't tell us that we're not entitled to a reaction unless we're personally experiencing a kind of marginalization or discrimination. Because if you divide everybody up into only being authorities on what they feel in the ways that they're discriminated against, then you're basically saying you should always, you'll never be able to break out of that cycle, because nobody who's not you can be an ally, and nobody who's not you can step in and work with you. And that's just stupid. All right, so that was pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm going to go ahead and if you guys have stuff in the chat that you want to put in now, I'm going to stay on. Usually when I do this, I stay on for like another 20 minutes or so talking to the chat. So if you guys have things that you want to put into the comment section. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Just I want to call out these white guys. I want to call out Harris, Rubin, and Peterson for covering up for racism and profiting from racism. They are defending a racist. They're defending racist slurs. They're defending a special white male privilege to hold a white guy who's using a racist slur completely unaccountable for his language, and also harnessing the racist response, the racists who are defending him as well, to rally them to come over and spend money on their sites. So, Discord, discuss in some detail. Guys, come on. I've just learned an entire OBS software. I've set up 3 scenes. I've learned I got a mic stand and a mic. I got, I'm using my mobile phone through an NDI connection. Just like, give me a break. Stop pushing me. Push Kevin for a while. He doesn't even wear headphones. This is my brunch. It's a spicy tomato juice. Too spicy, to be honest, to drink straight, so I have to cut it with some regular vegetable juice. No vodka, but if you added it, you would have a Bloody Mary. Nice way to wake up my mouth in the morning, I find. Right. Max, please get a Discord. No! Maybe after next year. I mean, I've just done a whole lot of work setting all of this up, and the last thing I want to do is get Skype in. So, please get a Discord. Ooh, what do you... Oh, I just talked about what I'm drinking. Yeah, I don't have it with me, but it's like... Yeah, I can't describe it. I won't even babble and try to remember. My community wants to engage with me further. Woe is me. Damn dog. Oh, I don't know who that's not me. Okay. Pretty sure that if I encountered a comedian who tried to be a gatekeeper as to what I'm allowed to be offended by, they're going to hear words from me. Yeah, good, go. Yeah. Like, don't tell me what I can be offended by and what I can't be offended by. Who are you to lecture me and farm out what I'm allowed to be offended by? No, Mr. White Man on stage. Again, not your power. I'm taking that one back. You don't get to hand out passes to say racist slurs, and you don't get to regulate who gets to be offended based on your perception of their group membership. Not how it works. Right. Stay at the Destiny Discord for right now. Yeah, just like yeah, you think, okay, can I also say on the Discord issue, I have such a bad impression of Discord servers after all of the trauma that I have seen happening on Discord servers this year. The Kraut Discord server, Ralph's Discord server got shut down. I'm highly skeptical of Discord because anyone could seems like they jump in there and post anything and then make accusations that there's a doxing going on in your Discord server because some randos jumped in there and started posting stuff that you had no idea about, and now suddenly there's all kinds of drama where you're getting accused of doxing because of some trolls in your Discord. And honestly, I already had a whole drama with being falsely accused of doxing somebody because an ED editor with an axe to grind against Bering about his candid participation in one of the scams that he ran a couple of years ago in his marketing, his advertising, put up information. The guy from ED put up stuff that Pat's name his name on the from his YouTube channel, and then he decided, oh yeah, I'm gonna name Christy. So yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical of putting out a Discord server where people could just randomly post stuff as a way to set me up for some sort of bullshit drama. Discord is on the path to the dark side, makes Twitter look like an academic conference. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, perhaps I'm on Discord insofar as people have invited me to join a Discord group to do calls and things like that, but I don't have my own Discord, so no. Although in theory we could do something along the lines of of Skype and have people drop in by Skype, but maybe Discord is something I can look into, but it won't be immediately. So looking at the questions here. So another thing I noticed is because I put my questions in the top part of my screen, I end up looking up a lot, so I'm going to move them down and just read them at a more comfortable eye level here. Discord. Oh yeah, so pros and cons, meaningful engagement with the community versus venue for trolls and provocateurs. Yeah, and this is it. Like, I already have quite a lot of demands on my time on social media. I get a lot of DMs, I get Facebook messages, I've got the group, the happy hour group that I'm running, plus my own private group for my Patreons, or my own Patreon supporters. And then I'm the one doing the podcast, so I have to download the audio and clean it up, and then upload it to Podbean, and give it a title, and give it a rating, and do all that legwork. And so the idea of Discord on top of all of this is just... Sorry guys, Kevin hasn't even paid me yet for all the money I've invested in setting up the podcast, so taking on more responsibilities is just kind of makes me tired to think about. CK probably wouldn't felt empowered to say the N-word if he'd never heard the black comedians saying it. I think that I disagree. Look, so 255 AD. White people have been using the N-word long before it was being reclaimed by black people. So no, it's a choice. You don't, if you see other white people using it, yeah, you have a role model. But Louis C.K., he appropriated that term for himself. And there's one joke I want to say. I can at least the N-word joke that he used a soft A-word version of it. Maybe you guys are familiar with this joke. But he was talking about being at a coffee shop, and it was like a sort of like gourmet hipster coffee shop. And he went up to the guy behind the counter and said, "Can I have a cappuccino?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, dude." And Louis C.K. describes how he like spends, like grinds up the beans and he makes them fresh, and then he goes over and he whips up some froth and foam, and like he's just watching the craft of putting it all together and pouring it in and putting on the froth and doing the sprinkles or whatever, and gives him the coffee. And Louis C.K. walks away after he pays and thinks, "Damn, that my guy made the shit out of my coffee." And he said, and the guy wasn't black. It was just like, and the reason I have an empathy a little bit with that is, like I said, listening to a lot of hip hop music, I hear the word in hip hop more than I hear it anywhere else. But you hear it in your head, and then it starts to come up. And I haven't had that experience. But like that my guy just made the shit out of my coffee. But I can understand why the echo of that and would be in your head from listening to a lot of hip hop. Now, it doesn't have to come out of your mouth, right? You're like, oh, that word popped into my head. Why is that? And do some self-reflection. And I guess if that discussion would have been what the only time he used the word, as opposed to this hard R response to Chris Rock, I mean, I'm not claiming that it's a burden for people not to say, this is it. Like, this is nothing compared to what black people experience in terms of actual discrimination of hearing that word. I'm just saying that from personal experience, I struggle with how to fit it into my life. Like, where does it go in my head? I know it doesn't come out of my mouth. I got that part down. But then when it's rolling around and rattling around in my head, that's the kind of stuff that I'm still a little bit dealing with. Right? What do I think about Hanson Picker? I don't know who that is. PC Myers, thank you for stopping by. It's so lovely to have you in the chat. Oh wow. Please don't go back and watch all the times I muted myself. I'm gonna have to edit those out. We just want to slide into your DMs, girl. Yeah, slide away. Actually, I get quite a lot of, people, and I don't mind. What is my day job? I do an incredible amount of work as it is. Currently, I am rescuing bits of social science projects for 2019. So I am a practicing social scientist, and currently what I'm focusing on this year is making sure that all of our deliverables on an EU project come in on time, on budget, and of a very high quality. And part of that is I'm doing trainings for people who want to do webinars. And one of the reasons I pushed myself to learn OBS and to do the camera stuff and all this is because I want to go to this training and show people how they could actually use OBS to do a webinar. And most importantly, in not having just to have a big screen of text that's boring. Because the worst things about a webinar, in my experience, is when you just have text on the screen and someone talking over it for more than 30 seconds. Your eyes visually, you just look away, you look at your phone, you get distracted. So one of the things I want to help people do is to put in a little webcam like this in a webinar, because just having someone with whom you can make eye contact will keep people much more engaged in your content. So that's a little bit about what I do. Thanks for your upload and stream. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate the views. Kevin is such a slacker. Yeah, he's a lovable ruffian. Like, I know he has really good intentions and he means well, but then he just sort of like makes excuses that I can't do it, but he can. Only interaction with Discord involved talking to flat earthers. Wow, that's an interesting way to spend an afternoon. Going down here. Hanson Picker stuff is very interesting. Okay. Oh, wait. Hanson Picker, is he the guy who's on the Young Turks? Did he do a video recently slamming Sargon response to him? I think I'm recognizing a name, but I don't know if I'm getting it the right name, because there's lots of names on YouTube. Some idiot thought he was a white rapper, got arrested when he called a black police officer the N-word trying to be friendly. I was just like, yeah, dumb white people. Some white people are so dumb. And yeah, I've also seen another. I had someone tell me a story of some guy, drunk college student in Madison, go, drunk off his ass, 2:00 in the morning, walking home, sees 3 black men minding their own business, having a conversation, just sort of wanders up, and he's like, "What's up, my N-words?" Like, no matter how drunk you are, you still can't say racist terms and not have people look at you funny. So yeah, and I think, I don't know, you can speculate. Who was it? Someone was honest lately and just like, I want to be black. Was it Crypt? Somebody was doing a video and saying it, and just like this, yeah, it's the white appropriation of black culture. Black culture, people in black culture have been so oppressed over time that finding that self-confidence, finding that self-worth, building it up out of literally nothing. And yet white people go and look at that and go, oh, he's so cool, I want to be like him. And yet you're not going through any of the struggles to lift yourself up to get to that. Anyway, yeah, thinking that you can use the N-word to get in with somebody. Morons. The debates between Destiny. Oh, you guys are talking about the Destiny and Hansen debates. I don't know. You guys are having your own conversation there about Destiny. So, all right. Well, you guys are. Looks like you're having a fun conversation in the chat, and I'm gonna have to end it now, I guess, because we're getting. Well, I could just leave it running and sit here and like be on my phone, let you guys talk in the chat, but that wouldn't be nearly as exciting. What am I gonna say? Again, with the holidays, I feel good about practicing this stuff now, so I'll probably be doing some more hangouts. I've got my Patreon hangout, which will be old school Google Hangout, coming up tomorrow. That is going to be happening the 1 hour and 5 minutes after Steve Shive's Sunday Patreon hangout takes place. That's usually 1:05 p.m. Eastern time. I think that's like 7:05 my time. So if you want to join as a patron, you can go to my Patreon account, which I still have because I don't use racist slurs. And you can get a link there. If you sign up now, I don't know if you're going to get in by Sunday, but if you want to get in for next time, you can always drop in $1 in the tip jar if you enjoy the content and want to have a conversation with us. I will set up that hangout link probably tomorrow because I've done this now and I'm lazy. But if you check back on Sunday around 1:05 Eastern Standard Time, that's about when we'll be going on there. 255 AD, you asked me a question that I didn't answer. Okay, I'm learning tips from Steve Shives and his way of doing things in the question. Oh, I see it. Yeah, I remember this from your chat yesterday. It's very nice. You write question in all caps, so it's easier to find. Is there any research to back up the idea black people can't mitigate the racism they experience by dressing more formally? They shouldn't have to do that, but it doesn't have to do that necessarily. It doesn't work. I think the point of it is it's not 100% guarantee. So if you say, here's the thing. If you're a black man who fits the description of somebody who's been accused of, a crime, one, we know that in terms of identification, cross-ethnic group identifications, eyewitness identifications, accuracy are pretty low. So you start to get like just any black man who's fitting this, this description is open to just being thrown down by the police. And no, if you're driving a car white black and it's a nice car and you're wearing a suit, that doesn't protect you. Driving a Mercedes, you still get pulled over driving a Mercedes, right? Wearing a suit coming back from a meeting, you can still get pulled over by the police. And this is it. If you're saying, just unpack this just a little bit. If the idea is, if black people just dress better, then they would be less likely to get hassled by the police. What you're implicitly accepting is that the police racially profile and hassle people based on what they wear. So if it's the case that black people could mitigate brutality or harassment by the police by dressing a certain way, then the real problem is getting it should actually be directed at the police as to why they're engaging in that kind of racial profiling instead of policing they would with any other community. So no, I am not going to tell people not to wear hoodies or to pull their pants up or do anything else to protect themselves from getting hassled by police any more than I'm going to tell a woman, if you don't wear a short skirt, you're not going to get raped. You can't make that promise. Even to a 90-year-old woman, you can't make that promise because she's not the problem. And in this case, black people aren't the problem. The rapist is the problem, or the racists are the problem. So stop trying to control the oppressed or think that they can somehow protect themselves and realize where the real problem lies. That's my take. And thank you, by the way, because it gave me a chance to lecture on how I'm trying to be a better ally. You guys can have this. So Max is giving me crap now. Focus on talking to you. No, you guys can have your own chat. I'm just looking for if there's any questions. I don't want to miss them. And then 255 AD, for instance, like, you didn't ask my question. Answer my question. Thanks for doing these. You're very welcome. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, you too. Legging bands. Yeah, Random Greek Geek had a hangout recently on a movie he did. And now I've asked him to do a video on the top 10 anime, his top 10 anime recommendations in Netflix, because I've got Netflix and I've got anime and I have no idea where to start. And I was like, I don't, there's like overwhelming choices. The only problem is I tried to, for instance, watch Ghost in the Machine, but it's such an old version. Like, it's been on Netflix, I think, for a while in Germany, and so it's only available in German or the original Japanese. My German's not quite good enough, so I'm looking for some other tips. Boo, 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 boo. Like Highly Critical said, MLK was murdered in a suit. Exactly. A suit or a skirt beyond the knee is not kryptonite to victimization. It's not the victim's fault. Women in burqas still get raped. Precisely. A medium-build black man. Yeah. Yes. One of, when I watched the history of hip-hop evolution, and again, hearing more from first-person accounts as opposed to white newscasters telling the story from their, white corporate media perspective about how living in LA, in this case, but it could be New York and anywhere, and people were getting arrested, just pulled up by the police for matching a description of, as you say, a medium-build black man. If women wore longer skirts, right? If we just went back and we, like Peterson. Oh, should we watch the Jordan Peterson stupid comments on the birth control pill? Yeah, let's do that. We've got like 10 more minutes before the end of the show. I'll read through the comments and then we'll go back and we'll look at Kevin's video because he has a clip of it. Privilege is real. This is coming from 96 FPS from Mars. I've never had to fear interactions with police or walking at night, but my experience is not universal. Yeah, precisely. When I got pulled over by the cops, I think I got a ticket once for not wearing a seatbelt. It was $10 fine. Fuck you, Oshkosh Police Department. Still, I wrote it out to the parking Gestapo. Oh, the cop was a prick about it. Oh, he's like one of those. Anyway, I'm talking about. But I didn't fear for my life. I was like mad I got a ticket, but I didn't go home and hug my loved ones because I could have gotten killed that day. So yeah, privilege is real. White privilege is very real, and it's only because we don't walk in other people's shoes that we don't see it more obviously. Our whiteness protects us from that reality. You should be able to dress how you want in public as long as it covers your body. So it covers the genitals. Yeah, I mean, although I'm kind of a free nipple person as well. I think it would be nice to desexualize breasts because, let's face it, I live in an urban area. I've got windows, and if I inadvertently, if I'm changing and part of my house is open windows, I have to wear inside my house what I wear outside my house, so that people can't come in and look at it and see me naked. So even inside my own house, I have to think about what men might see me in. Even in the privacy of changing in the morning and wanting to go over and getting a coffee, I double think walking into the kitchen in a bra and my jeans in case there's a man next door. Even in the privacy of my own home, to do wearing a hoodie without judgment is white privilege. Truth. Yes, yes, yes. Shira, go-to first anime. Good, thank you for the recommendation, Lonely Wolf. Good to see you again, by the way, mate. Ghost in the Shell. Yes, not the machine. That was something else. Thank you for the correction, bro. My Hero Academia. I don't know what that means, PZ, but Akira is a good old one. Thanks for the recommendation. Watch Trigun. I'm getting all kinds of anime stuff. We should not cover the genitals. Can I just say, I'm going to say on an aesthetic level, please cover up your penises. Like, I understand why boobs and butts are nice, but now you can judge me for being, harsh aesthetically on the male genital units that y'all got going on down there, but please cover them. Representation matters. If different kinds of people show up in media and art stereotypes, it certainly helps. Definitely, MSNBC transformed the way I understood news. You know why? Because I got to hear news from Joy Reid, and I got to hear news from Craig Melvin, and I got to hear news from Ali Velshi, and I hear from a lot of different people, Al Sharpton, voices that growing up with 3 corporate media stations that had all white broadcasters and hosts on it, growing up where all the game show hosts were white, everything was run by white people, and it mostly still is. But yeah, when you talk about that representation, that lived experiences, you can't give those when you're not sitting in those seats, and that's why it's important. We need diversity in our communication, everywhere, in our politics, in our business, so that we have that full range of diversity in those industries. All right. Dad wears shorts all the time, risks showing his genitals off. Oh, that's more than we wanted to know. Do I think all white people are implicitly biased? I think all people have implicit biases. And I think the reason why I tend to focus on, and I think critiques tend to focus on white people's implicit bias, is because we have political power. So I think that there's, in terms of unconscious biases, you grow up, even with African Americans who grow up in America, they're still exposed to the same negative stereotypes of black people that we all are. And so you can internalize those biases by repeated exposure, such that, black people might have an anxiety about other black people or have bad negative stereotypes of black people. So when a black cop shoots a black person, the answer to white people should not be, see, black people shoot black people too. It's like, what is it in the police? Is there something in the police system that trains all officers to be suspicious of black men? That's a bigger question. That's a more core question than superficially saying, oh, if a black officer shoots a black man, then suddenly that negates the racism in white shootings? No. No, the question is, how does internalized racism, like internalized misogyny, keep a power structure going? That's the question. First experiences. So this is from, I lost it now. Yeah, you guys keep adding stuff. Oh, here we go. Madness Ends. My first experience with social justice were in Tumblr and Twitter. The leftists and the sites are so shitty and awful. I almost became an anti-SJW. Yeah, is Tumblr still a thing? Yeah, and I think, with Twitter, I don't run in those circles, and I tend to think they're exaggerated, but most of my bad experiences have been people on the right on Twitter, and again, who goes to Tumblr? I absolutely have gone to my balcony in my bra or even topless, and I don't care. Hey, Sabrina, how many 5 do you grow? On it, I can't, in part because I'm worried about, like, neighbors, but also, yeah, like, just my personal life. I don't want getting out there. But good for you, and free the nipple, and don't care about your neighbors. Right, representation matters for several reasons. Of course, it matters. This is, again, from Mars, to someone like you on TV, but if society sees people like you as individuals with some kinds of wants and needs, it helps too. Yeah, definitely. If you have people in those roles, then you relate to the person. And I think, for me, probably the most profound experience of that for us as a country was when Barack Obama became president. Because I remember, now I see Barack. Now I see my president. Now I'm like, why did we break up? We were so good together. But I do recall when he was a candidate in 2008, and then he was elected president. I remember the night I was at the university. I was actually putting on an election night party to watch and host it. It was full. It was just like full of people all the way till 5 a.m. And I saw when it was announced he won, and he was on the stage in Chicago, and I was looking at him on the stage as our president-elect, and I felt so proud, and I felt so happy and relieved and hopeful, because can we just all agree Barack Obama felt like a safe pair of hands? No drama Obama, right? You can disagree with him, whatever, but you never had to panic that he was going to do something irrational and do something stupid on troop movements or say something and offend all of our allies. He was a steady hand, whatever you think of any particular policies. So I saw him as our president-elect that night. And you would think, president-elect, president, not much of a difference, right? Consciously. But after his inauguration, and you watched him take the oath on the steps, it still took me seeing him stand behind the podium and the presidential seal for me to go, wow, like a biracial and black man is my president. He would, like, since president-elect and the swearing, all that stuff, but somehow for me the moment changed when he took the podium. He took on the mantle of the presidency, and to see that mantle worn in the body of a black man, it did. Like, it wasn't that it was jarring to me in that, I don't like Barack Obama. I liked Barack Obama. It was just different. It was just different and new. And by the end of, 6 months, you just saw the president. But that first moment of confronting it and getting used to it, and then it stops being an issue. So yeah, I definitely think that representation matters because it humanizes people as well. It puts people in the room. It puts people in contact. And you need that to break down the stereotypes. You need individuals, real people, to break down the stereotypes. So, I'm happy your penis is beautiful, Twisted Hippie. We're all very, very, like, seriously, like, I'm happy for you. I'm glad you enjoy your penis. Right. Dick pics equals a cat bringing in a dead mouse. Take it outside. Thank you, Lonely Wolf. What was that about boobs and butts? Tumblr isn't what it was. I don't think it ever was what it was. To quote I Claudius. All right. Should we have a little laugh at Jordan Peterson before the end of the hours here? We're getting on 2 hours, but I owe you guys time because I messed up with stupid muting before. I probably lost a good 10 minutes of me going, where does this sound? Alright, so let me go to my Kevin Logan thing here. Because if you haven't seen this, you probably have. Even if you have, it's not that long. And Jordan Peterson is so dumb. Okay. So, let's go over to the right screen. I'll go small this time. Little tiny me in the corner. Okay. Thanks, Kevin, by the way. I'm glad you do content so I can rebroadcast it on my channel. Thank you.
As previously discussed on this channel, Jordan Peterson is a fucking lunatic. And another special moment arose a few days ago when he had the company of Donald Trump Jr., amongst other pricks. Donald Trump Jr. being a guy who has the ear of the most powerful man in the world, which makes him worryingly a rather influential, potentially influential person. So, yeah, so you'd think that, anyone would try and say something profound and worthwhile.
Skip you.
Not JBP, naturally.
I think it's partly also a consequence of the fact that we haven't adapted to the birth control pill yet.
Who is this wee white man? Who is this wee white man? Who's the we that's not adapted to the birth control pill yet? I'm gonna tell you, women who are using it, I mean, hey, there are negative side effects for some people in some situations. Some women take it for fertility issues. Other ones take it for things like endometriosis. For a long time, I took the pill to treat my endometriosis. So, but in Jordan Peterson's world, we haven't figured out how to deal with it yet. I want to take issue and umbrage with that claim.
It was a major technological revolution, the birth control pill. And
it allowed women to control their fertility with a confidence never before seen in human history. The pill, and now we've got Plan B too, have put power into the hands of women to control their fertility and not be slaves to their own biology and the happenstance of conception. And you can understand why Jordan Peterson, as a reactionary defender of racist language, would find this threatening. Why is this threatening to Jordan Peterson? Because it's one less way that men can control women, is my speculation. See, when women are pregnant, they have young kids and they're nursing, they are in a more sort of vulnerable position. If in our society, they're less able to just go out and work, right? There's also the physical toll of pregnancies, the physical toll of labor and recovery, and also the physical demands of nursing a child and raising a child in their earliest years. Now, of course, women don't spend our whole lives raising infants. It might take up a sort of like certain years, maybe for the most a decade or so of our human lives. But this ability of women to control their fertility, changed the ways that men could use nature to control women because of their vulnerabilities. And Jordan Peterson really wants, is quite not sure how to deal with that.
it's only been 50 years, and we haven't figured out what it means for women to have control over the reproductive function. Or
50 years, and he hasn't figured out what it means. This is it. I don't know why he keeps saying we in this situation. Women are quite happy with the control we have over our reproductive fertilities, our reproductive timing of our pregnancies and the spacing of our pregnancies. We figure that out. It doesn't take much to figure that out. So who is this we? Who is this we, Jordan? I think you mean I. That you shouldn't be saying we. You're saying I haven't figured out how to deal with women's liberation. I haven't figured out how to comprehend and deal with women when they can actually control their own fertility. That's a problem you have, Jordan. It's not a we problem. It's a you problem.
what the consequences what the consequences of that should be socially.
What the consequence of that should be socially is that women have greater freedom to control their fertility and the number and spacing of their children, so that they can enter the workforce and time their pregnancies, to, one of the things that we saw during the Great Recession is that fertility for every cohort except women in their late 30s and 40s went down a lot. And why is it that in an economic downturn, women would decide to put off childbearing? Because the economy is bad. And they don't want to have a child when they're in a delicate economic situation. That's women being responsible. That's women being proactively thinking how to be a good mother, how to be a good provider for their child, and thinking, okay, well, let's give it a year or two and see if my job becomes more secure, or if I find a job, right? And the reason for women in their late 30s and 40s, their fertility rates didn't change at all, is because those women were in a situation where it's now or never. And so timing trumped economic stability. And that meant, their priorities were different. They're like, I can't wait for 3 years for the economy to get better, because in 3 years I might not be able to have a child, so I'm going to decide to have my child now and go off birth control. And anything that gives women any kind of bodily autonomy, I think Jordan Peterson immediately thinks is suspicious and is an attack on men.
The leftist types, especially in the 60s, thought you could just blow sexual morality apart completely.
So he's conflating here women taking responsibility for their own fertility to you're a whore. That you want to destroy sexual morality. That this whole mentality that you're taking part in is really about the destruction of the whatever he values. Because women's sexual liberation is such a threat to certain kinds of men and women, but is women's sexual autonomy and liberation. Our ability through technology to transcend the biological nature of, or the biological justification of patriarchy is such a threat. It does not compute. He's like just trying to question. He's trying to question or bring into some sort of doubt the utility or the usefulness or the fact that birth control has made our lives so much better. You know, just putting some seeds of doubt, like, we don't know. We're still reeling with the effects of these people in the 60s who wanted to have more sex because sex is fun and enjoyable and creates bonding, but not always have to worry about producing a person irresponsibly or through happenstance. You know, and this time you had sex and you pulled out in time, last time you didn't, but you're still pregnant, whatever. Putting some control over there, very threatening to Jordan. But hey, saying the N-word, say the N-word all you want, according to Jordan Peterson. White people, be as racist as you want. He's going to be out there protecting your right to use racist slurs and not be held accountable. Go see Jordan Peterson if you've got that problem. He's your man.
Because now people were free to do what they want. But that isn't working. There's a backlash.
That's not working? Letting people have sex? And be responsible with actually getting pregnant? Having sex responsibly so they don't have unintended pregnancies or having unwanted pregnancies, that's a terrible thing according to Jordan Peterson. And again, it gets back to this undermining of patriarchy. Men, certain kinds of men, hashtag not all men, but you do see, I think Jordan Peterson is probably one of them, but others as well, and if you want me to get examples, I will, men who say, because women no longer fear the consequences of sex being an unintended pregnancy, women are more sluttish now because they don't constantly have to regulate their own sexuality to prevent pregnancy. And because, you know, what that means is it's women's job to fend off men, to remain virginal and pure, and to kind of like be that purity sphere, be that perfect, pure, chaste femininity that a man wants to take his penis into and destroy her chastity and be the first. That's all very important for women to keep. And if we aren't punished with pregnancy for our transgressions, if we don't fear punishment through pregnancy, that somehow destabilizes society. How messed up is that? How messed up is that? What kind of messed up view of pregnancy is that? You should fear pregnancy and that should keep your legs closed. You slut. Hey, Johnny, you nailed 2 girls last night. You're such a stud, man. Anyway, we'll finish this up.
Against that on the left as well.
The look on the woman's face in the middle there is an absolute fucking picture as she tries to come to terms with the absolute nonsense that JBP is spewing there. The 3 of them look like they're, you know, when the nutter at the party sort of corners you and is talking about his collection of stamps or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're just humouring him at that point. I also love the fact that Peterson is talking about sexual morality with a crowd that he thinks are like sympathetic to him or on his side. But one of those people is Donald Trump Jr., who is an adulterer, who is the son of a serial adulterer.
Good point, Kevin. All right, everyone can go check out Kevin's video on that. You've seen most of it. But, yeah, Jordan Peterson is a reactionary. He's a political reactionary. He is clearly threatened by women's liberation. I mean, there's a clip I just put up again this week of him saying 2 different contexts. One saying radical feminists subconsciously long for the male domination they've driven out of the West. And another clip where Jordan Peterson says, in terms of, you know, feminists, that they long for brutal male domination. So yeah, you really start to flesh out this picture. Oh, and you know, if you remember his interview with Camilla Paglia, when he was saying it's unfair that I know where I stand with men because we have these certain amounts of negotiations and then we get physical and we fight each other and then we resolve our disputes through violence as men. But oh, poor me, when a woman calls me a Nazi, I can't thump her. I can't, the things that I would do to a man socially are looked down upon. So he can't hit women. And that he really feels aggrieved by. He feels threatened by women's sexual liberation. He feels aggrieved by the fact that he can't use violence against women. And he thinks the women who talk about liberation, people like, the fact that I talk more about liberation according to his stupid made-up Freudian crap, is that this signals that I actually really want to be dominated more. The more I talk about my own liberation, it really means I want a man to dominate me. And this is his misogynistic worldview. Women can never be autonomous beings, worthy of respect on equal par with men. I've never seen him talk about women in that kind of way. He might be respectful to a woman. But when he talks about women and women's liberation and women's sexual autonomy and all this sort of stuff, all he does is preach, my penis makes me special, my penis gives me power over ladies, and anything that takes my magic penis power away and threatens my authority to say, the man says no, is a threat to him. And, I guess we hope these ideas would die off, but it's weird how they keep coming back in every single generation. He is not threatened by women's liberation, since for every liberated woman there'll be a triggered white man who is willing to find their purpose by watching Jordan Peterson. I don't know if his audience is that old. It seems to be skew younger to me. But we all have beautiful sex organs. All right, okay, people are tired of my penis shaving. It's a preference. And so I don't like mushrooms. There's certain just aesthetic preferences in life that I have. And I've seen many penises. And they're all unique and special. But none of them is something I'd want to put on my wall. Take a picture of and put it on my wall. Someone asked me, what is my position on virginity? I think that Virginia is a state of virginity. It's what's described in Firefly. It's a state of being. Like, I don't, who you having something put in your parts consensually, obviously, is the way it should be always, or putting your bits in somebody else's parts. It doesn't change who you are as a person, or your desirability, or your likelihood of having a relationship, or anything. I think we tend to put a lot of emphasis on virginity because of our puritanical past. I think we put a lot overemphasis on virginity because of religious patriarchy. I think there's a lot of psychological scars that associate the degrading men who don't get enough sex and degrading women who have too much sex. And those are usually tailored to whatever situation. And so in terms of virginity, I oppose virgin shaming. I don't understand virgin shaming. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a virgin. I can understand why people wouldn't want to be. Clearly sex is something in life y'all want to try at some point and hopefully do it well and have a good time with it. But if someone went their whole life saying, I don't have enough of a sexual drive to be interested in somebody to like stick my bit in them, or like I like people but I don't want you to stick your bits in me, who cares? So my son has read the Communist Manifesto. It's a pretty short read. I don't really remember being that impressed by the Communist Manifesto. Of course, it's hard. It's like watching an old Hitchcock movie now when it was, really innovative at the time in Psycho to, like have the music and the flash of a knife to give the impression of violence in that way. But because you've seen it so long, you kind of don't understand how big it was at the time. And I think the same thing with the Communist Manifesto. I'd heard enough of the ideas of Marx and also like critiques of Marx through other lenses that I probably didn't find the Communist Manifesto as interesting maybe as I would have if I would have read it in the day. Who's Jimmy? Oh, Jimmy. Oh, I see. You're being very edgy by using a slur without the middle name. Is that the only thing that you've been doing? Knock it off, Jimmy. No one's impressed. Okay, so we're not going to take care of you. Yeah. Well, Jimmy, if you do have a sincere or legit question, you can go ahead and post that now. No, you don't. Okay. well, I said I was going to go for 2 hours and make up some of that silent time. That was in the video. And I did that. So, again, I'm going to be gaming tonight on V's channel, I think. The Pathfinder game that's been put off forever. That will be going up to my Patreon thing. And then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And I think New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are both boring AF holidays. I mean, I'll take the paid holiday. But I've been out in the Cologne City one, and it is fun. But I don't like winter. And so the idea of waiting until midnight to go stand out in the cold, being drunk and cold, and then the traffic to come home. Ugh. So it's very possible Kevin and I will do a New Year's Eve day hangout where we get together and chat, and I might even do one on New Year's Eve day itself because it'll be my last day of holiday before I have to go back to the real world. And these have been fun. Oh, Jimmy, you're a mod for V. Yeah. The Pathfinder game is it is gaming. It is basically not. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 political quips, but otherwise it's straight up gaming. And I used to D&D in my teens. I was in a D&D game when I was in college. I was a total nerd geek. And I liked guys who were nerds and geeks at that time too. So guys who would game with me. My observations are incredibly enlightening. Well, that's highly. I'm blushing. Thank you. Thank you. Is it cold in Cologne? Depends on what your idea of cold is. It's, I think, in the single digits. I could actually check, but I'm not going to. 5 or 6 degrees last time I looked, and that's Celsius. So converting 5 times 2 is 10 plus 30, so it's about in the 40s. You can go outside without gloves, but I wouldn't go outside without a scarf. That's how cold it is. Always in the DMs. Yeah, so on the V game, the Pathfinder game, because I'd not played in so long, and because Pathfinder has so many more options than D&D, and skills and feats and spells and domains and all that stuff, I never look at the chat when I'm on the Pathfinder stream with V because I'm mostly trying to make sure I don't mess up. That's my main priority, is to not say something stupid. Less than 10 degrees is cold to you. Wow, you must live in a warm climate there. Shiraz, say, is it? Are you in the Canaries or something? Are you in southern Europe, like the Mediterranean area? I don't like the cold, I have to say. I mean, Cologne is much warmer than Wisconsin, so I am happy about that. But if I retired, I can totally see the advantages of being like a snowflake, as they call them, where you go from like the Midwest and then you move to either Arizona or Florida for the winter months. Totally get that. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for stopping by, for paying attention, for letting me test out using my mobile phone as a webcam. This obviously seemed to be a successful test on the visual front. I can swap now. A successful test on the visual front, even if I messed up the audio. And what I learned this time from the audio, snowbird. Yeah, I've heard snowflakes and snowbirds because they disappear in the wind or like whatever, but you're right, snowbirds. You're right. Thank you for the correction there. Who was that? Who corrected me? You're gone now. I can't see it, but you were right. You were right. Yes, I will not mute my mic and leave it unattended and forget about it in future. Thank you guys for letting me practice on you. And until either the Pathfinder thing or Steve's hangout, which I'll try to not crash, I donate. Chrisiosity has one too, although I don't know what time hers is. I'm also a patron of Chrisiosity. So possibly today I'll be on my stream, Chrisiosity's stream, Pathfinder, Steve's stream tomorrow, and my own Patreon hangout. I need to get, and I saw my friends yesterday. I need some time off of line. That's what I need. All right, so I've been Christy. You guys have been awesome in the chat. People watching in the future, thank you for your patience getting through the silent bits. Until the next time I am online, thank you guys, and we'll see each other again really soon. Like literally really soon. Sometime later today, probably. All right, bye.